Everybody can hear me okay? So first of all, I just want to take a moment and thank everybody for attending. I hope everybody is safe and healthy, and I hope that you will thoroughly enjoy the next couple of days of EclipseCon. I know Wayne has already mentioned that we have many people to thank from the program committee. Cedric and the team did such a fantastic job on our staff. Anne and Gail did such a great amount of work. But I also want to thank our sponsors, because literally we would not be here without them. And so it's been a lot of work to put this show on, as originally we were going to be taking place in Ludwigsburg in our normal venue. And of course, though we miss Ludwigsburg and miss seeing everybody in person, we're really thrilled with the opportunity to reach so many more people than we have in the past. And so this morning we went over 2,500 registrations. Obviously something that we're very, very excited about. And in particular, we're excited about the fact that there's over 1,900 first-time attendees. So this is a real opportunity to introduce a lot of people to the Eclipse community, the great technical work that's happening in our projects, in our working groups. Of course, very international event with over 118 countries represented. And we're absolutely thrilled to see, India #1 in terms of the countries that have registered for the event. And it's, when you see the numbers from India, China, Brazil, Mexico, they might not have had a chance to travel. And so this whole video conference approach is definitely reaching us out into a whole new world of people who are interested in the technologies that we have at the Eclipse community. So welcome to all of you. Welcome to returnees of us. Of course, you're the heart of our community. Many of you are committers working on our projects, and we certainly appreciate the support. As Wayne mentioned briefly, we do have a code of conduct. We're committed to having an open and welcoming environment for everybody. Of course, the code of conduct isn't necessarily all part of that, but it's nice to have as a backstop. This applies to all of our projects, this virtual conference, and all the spaces where we come together as community members. It basically boils down to just keep being awesome to one another. All right, so now I really want to dive into the meat of the presentation. And it really boils down to, boy, oh boy, is it ever a great time to be in open source. Participation is absolutely surging across all channels in all parts of aspects of open source. And it's really great to see. And the word participation there is very important. Participation is, of course, the lifeblood of open source communities. And for years, we've seen metrics where people are talking about using open source, things like 55% of companies are leveraging open source in production, 72% of developers are using open source in their jobs. But now we're starting to see more metrics about participation and contribution. And so it's heartwarming to see 65% of firms are contributing to open source projects. And then some even more recent numbers from places like Harvard, McKinsey, and the New Stack are talking about the business value that participation is really starting to drive into those companies that are jumping in and doing it. Harvard Business Review noted that when a company has a paid employee engaged in open source projects that they're relying upon, their internal productivity using that project or that framework or runtime, whatever it may be, went up as much as 100% compared to they quoted free riding competitors. Recent article from McKinsey back in April showed that when you look at the companies that are being more successful in digitalization and becoming more innovative and more software centric, they really noticed that they're of the top quartile companies in terms of their innovation capabilities. There was a very strong correlation between that ability to innovate and their engagement in open source. And 72% of organizations that frequently contribute to upstream projects get above average value from their participation and membership in open source foundations. So there's real value there in participating at the foundations as well. Of course, the big news at the Eclipse Foundation this year was really that we announced in May that we are pivoting to become a European organization. So for 16 years, the Eclipse Foundation has been legally based in the state of Delaware in the US. And we are going to be shortly, we're still waiting for the royal decree, but shortly become a Brussels-based Belgian international nonprofit association, or an AISBL in the French acronym. And our goal here is to really grow the Eclipse global ecosystem by recruiting strategic open source projects with international impact. And that's really why we're doing this. But another big part of why we're doing this is late last year, early this year, we really noticed that the Eclipse Foundation and its community had become a very European-centric organization. 170, roughly 2/3 to 70% of our paying members are based in Europe. Almost 1,000 of the committers who work on our projects, almost 2/3 to 70% are based in Europe. We've been operating a company in Europe, Eclipse Foundation Europe GmbH, for over 7 years, and about 1/3 of our staff is based in Europe. So we really saw this as sort of like just cementing where we had already been going. That the Eclipse Foundation had gradually become European, and this was an opportunity to really jump in with both feet and sort of finish off the job. But again, it's important to remember that although we're going to become legally a European organization, the real driver for doing all of this is about having global impact, being a global institution to help manage what has become a global supply chain of software that is driving innovation all the way around the world. Now, it's great to have supporters, and we couldn't have done it without these 4 companies in particular. So these are the initial founding members of the Eclipse Foundation AISBL. And it's great to have IBM on board because, as many of you know, IBM was instrumental in founding the Eclipse Foundation originally. So having them on board was something that was very near and dear to our heart. SAP has been with us from the very beginning. They were a founding strategic member of the Eclipse Foundation from its inception in 2004. They've supported us this entire time. And of course, as the Europe's largest ISV, it made great sense and to have them join as well. And we really appreciate the support. Bosch joined our board a number of years ago, and as a large and famous industrial, it's great to have their support. But I'd like to call out our new strategic member, Daimler TSS. And so Daimler recognized the strategic importance of the Eclipse Foundation's move to Europe. And that was a large part of the reason why they joined our board and became one of the founding members of the AISBL. We really appreciate the support, and we look forward to working with the Daimler team as they bring some really innovative interesting projects to the Eclipse Foundation over the next couple of months. In terms of the Eclipse Foundation's growth this year, as everybody knows, 2020 has been, to say the least, an odd year. We're really happy to report that this has been a strong year for growth for the foundation and our community. We've had over 75 new member companies join the Eclipse Foundation throughout the year. We've had 5 new working groups join the Eclipse Foundation, and at least 20 new project proposals. And we've had a couple in the last week or two. So it's great to see this steady growth of the Eclipse Foundation. And it's really interesting to note that some of the new projects are coming in technical areas like cloud and edge and IoT, digital ledger, and so on. It's great to see this ongoing growth. So moving now to a couple of factors on marketing and others that we want to bring to your attention. We rebranded our tagline this year. So for the last couple of years, we've been calling ourselves the platform for open innovation and collaboration. And this year we switched that to the community for open innovation and collaboration. And it's a subtle change, but one thing that we think one that we think is really important to make, because we really do believe that the community is driving all of the good work that's happening at the Eclipse Foundation and our projects. And we're very excited about the way the community has been growing, and putting the community front and center in terms of how we position the Eclipse Foundation, I think, is a great idea. Now, we've delivered a lot of valuable research this year. For those who don't know or don't participate, we do a number of different surveys each year. Each spring, we do the 2020 Jakarta IDE Developer Survey Report. That got a lot of traction back earlier this year. And just on Monday, we announced our annual IoT Developer Survey that came out with a number of interesting findings. One being that agriculture has emerged as the leading focus area. Not on the slide, but I think is actually just as interesting, is last year home automation was #1, and this year it dropped out of the top 3. So it seems that home automation is becoming less of a focus area across the IoT landscape. It's been pretty constant that things like security, connectivity, and data collection are top of mind amongst developers. But AI as the most frequently selected edge compute workload was a new result from this year's survey, and digital ledgers as gaining traction as the way to secure IoT solutions is also new. Not new is Java is still the most widely used programming language on the edge and in the cloud. As you would expect, C is the language of choice when you're talking about constrained devices. So this IoT developer survey is something that we've been doing every year for, I think this was the 6th annual one. So we're getting some traction, some continuity across the way, across the data. It provides some quite interesting data for folks out there that are studying how the IoT and edge are evolving. Want to do a big and warm shout out to the Eclipse IDE community, which released their 2020-09 release a couple of weeks ago. Once again, on time to the day, something like 14 years now, we've been on time to the day. It's always very impressive. Major new feature this year is we're now bundling a Java runtime. So that's actually going to make it easier for our community to get going and install and run Eclipse IDE out of the box. We really want to thank a couple of individuals who put in a lot of effort to make the 2020-09 release possible. So Ed Merckx, many of you know, is the leader of the OOMPH project, of course, the modeling PMC, but he's also really stepped up to help support the development of the simultaneous release, and has really put a lot of work into Just J as well, which made that Java runtime possible. And Jonah Graham is the guy who's now making sure that the Eclipse packages are being developed and built on a regular basis. And without him, we simply would not be able to do a simultaneous release. And just want to make a shout out for the community. We need more folks like Ed and Jonah to help keep this simultaneous release going. So folks that are willing to roll up their sleeves and help do the builds and the runs and the testing and all the things that go on behind the scenes to make these releases possible. So if you're interested in participating in that way, please put your hand up on one of the mailing lists and jump in. Just a couple of additional points on other projects that are doing interesting things at the Eclipse Foundation. So OpenVSX and the OpenVSX registry is coming live. This is all about supporting Theia and Che and creating an open registry for extensions that can be downloaded into Theia and help provide capabilities there. The Eclipse Adoptium project is coming on stream. This was announced back in May that Adopt OpenJDK would be moving their builds of Java runtimes into the Eclipse Foundation. Eclipse IO-Fog shipped their 2.0 release a few months back, and IO-Fog is definitely a project that's getting a lot of traction and attention in the edge computing space. Jakarta EE9 is shipping in a couple of weeks, which will be a specification release and helping move the enterprise Java ecosystem from the JavaX namespace to the Jakarta namespace. A lot of heavy lifting and a lot of work has gone on there. And finally, a shout out to the collaboration that we've got with the Open Hardware Group, which is doing processor designs based on the RISC-V instruction set architecture, and have been partnering with us since the beginning of the year. It's very exciting to see the broader Eclipse community start to get involved in open hardware designs, as well as our roots in open software. And of course, specifications is becoming a larger and larger part of what we're doing at the Eclipse Foundation. So Jacquard E was the one that really started the ball rolling. Starting this year, we also got ASCII Dock and Sparkplug as two new specs that are moving forward. And just in the process of coming on stream, MicroProfile is standing up its working group and is planning on shipping a first release under the Eclipse Foundation spec process very soon. And you may or may not have heard earlier, or late last week, early this week, the OSGI Alliance announced that it was going to be moving to the Eclipse Foundation as and change into an Eclipse Foundation working group and do the specification process here with the Eclipse Foundation. In terms of some good work by our staff in providing better support for our projects and our committers, we stood up another Forge based on GitLab, running on servers based in Switzerland. This is part of our transition to being a European-centric organization. But the team has also spent an enormous amount of effort on creating and supporting and moving our projects over onto Jenkins, our Jenkins-based continuous integration system that's now supporting over 250 projects. Powered by Kubernetes, and it supports outside build agents as well. So we can also build, use machines that we don't necessarily have within our data center to do builds for projects as well. So just want to thank Denis and his team for all the hard work that they did on these initiatives this year. As you can imagine, with the pandemic, we at the Eclipse Foundation have spent a lot of time becoming experts on supporting our community digitally. And so this EclipseCon event, of course, was originally going to be an in-person event in Ludwigsburg, but we've pivoted hard to become very much a virtual-centric and virtual-first in terms of the events that we provide. And it's been great to see a broader number of people showing up for these events, because it's a great way to introduce folks to what we and our projects do. A program that we're just in the process of starting up and rolling out, that if you're working on an Eclipse project, might be of interest to you, is what we call the adopters page. So just an opportunity for every project to highlight the organizations that are using your project. So keep an eye out for more information on the adopters page project, but we see this as an integral part of helping our projects to promote themselves. We're also going to do more in 2021 around celebrating community successes. So we're going to have a project profile on our homepage every month, and also do committer profiles for the leaders of our community on our homepage every month as well. And just a few final thoughts. For those who have been around EclipseCon or the Eclipse community for many years, know Ralph Mueller. He was our first staffer in Europe. He was the founder of the event that became EclipseCon Europe and now EclipseCon, and the founding managing director of Eclipse Foundation Europe. Ralph retired earlier this year, and I just wanted to take a moment to recognize his contributions to the Eclipse Foundation and the Eclipse community. And yeah, Ralph, enjoy your retirement. He is working with us a couple of days a week as a consultant, so he hasn't gone too far. But we really appreciate all of the support that you've done over the years. And just to call it, it wasn't all hard work. We had a few laughs along the way. And Ralph, I appreciate your friendship. You've been both a friend and colleague of mine for way over 20 years. And so just all the best. And but I do look forward to our continuing collaboration. So just in closing, just a reminder, if you can tweet at EclipseCon or use the hashtag EclipseCon, join the conversation. And feedback is the breakfast of champions. So please evaluate the sessions and provide feedback for our speakers so that they and our event can continue to get better every year. And with that, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your attention and really enjoy EclipseCon. So great to have so many of you here, and we're definitely looking forward to having a great event this week. Thank you.